You know, the episode you guys just watched, episode 6, it was powerful. It was tough to watch when I watched it on Friday. What was going through your mind and how'd you kind of like prepare for that scene?
I lost my mother about was it 5 months ago, and my mother used to always say of how tired Black people are. You remember seeing, the sanitation worker, the way you watch them at the end of the shift at the bottom of the hill when they would crack open that bottle of Miller High Life and just sit. There's fatigue, there's pain there. Because a life is being lived. A life is being lived that oftentimes ends up being unfulfilled. That's what you see up there.
Oof. Just emotional and caught up in the vibes of it all.
Yes.
But I want to start back from the beginning because I think a lot of people, your story is so interesting. I've been on a deep dive. But you started, you had a career, as in football and as a track star.
Yes.
And at some point the acting bug bit you. When was that?
In high school, I was always doing the school musical. So they did the fall play, and then they would do the spring musical. And in the fall, I was playing football, so I wouldn't have time to do the play. But in the spring, I ran track. And so all those track runners, once you get your workout done, you can just get out of there. So where I can take anywhere from a half an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how committed you are. So I was able to go from the track and go straight into rehearsal. And, it was one of those things that just kind of bit me. We did the Wiz.
Ooh,
and
down the road.
A buddy of mine was like, we had to dare to audition for the Wiz. And I got the role of the wing monkey leader. And I was wearing a stingy Brim Brum DMC hat. And I was out there with no shirt on because, I was Body by Fisher at the time. And, it was just one of those things that was just fun. And interestingly enough, so I did the Wiz, I did Godspell the next year, Wiz sophomore year, Godspell my junior year, and then Grease my senior year. But in the fall, I decided not to play football. And so I ended up doing the play in the fall. And so once it was time to decide where we were going to want to go to school, what our majors wanted to be, I'll never forget this. A friend of mine, Jason Dillard, we were in homeroom. And we're sitting down. I said, man, I don't know what I want to study. I don't know what I want to major in. He said, man, just simple Oakland, ignorant-ish. He said, hey, man, why don't you do that acting shit? They don't do nothing. And me, in my infinite wisdom, I was like, yeah, that's going to be pretty easy, And then auditioned for Boston University and got in. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Oh my God, I love that story. And I feel like probably being an athlete, helped you have that mindset of resilience, in terms of being on the battlefield, of being an actor. And I think this story is so incredible. Your first acting gig, you were hired, and then I think I heard you were fired from it, right? For Copland?
Yes.
I mean, that is resilience. Tell us that story.
Yeah, I was, okay, this is great. So, I had to go audition for Copland. I was supposed to play a drug addict, crack addict, or whatever, that normal stuff Black folks play in movies. And so I was living on 110th between Columbus and Manhattan at the time. And I was what's the Tyrone Biggums? You know what I'm saying? I got dressed up. Before Tyrone, but I was doing Tyrone before Tyrone. And I walked from 110th Street to 57th Street at Todd Thaler's casting office. And I walked down and I was just like walking down, like tripping and doing the thing and just getting into it, and showed up at his door, and he was scared. He was like, who are you? I said, no, I'm an actor. He said, no, he said, stand right here. He closed the door, called my agent, and said, okay, open the door. He said, come in. He was very reluctant. And then I auditioned. He was like, oh man, this is fantastic. You're great. So I get the job. And, came a couple days later, finally I got the job. And the first thing I do, of course, I called my mama. I said, Mom, I got a job. I said, Mom, don't say nothing to nobody. Of course, mama black mama, she gonna tell everybody. And then I went to go get fitted, everything like that. Came back the day I got fitted. They called and told me I got replaced by Method Man. And I still got paid, but I didn't do the movie. And I had to call my mama back and tell her, Mom, you didn't tell nobody, did you? Oh, I just told Elaine and your godmother, and then I told Aunt Saucy, and But yeah.
Wow, I love that. But what was the moment for you where you kind of realized I'm gonna go for broke on being an actor?
The truth is, Chris, it's just you go for broke from the beginning.
Wow.
There's no plan B, quite honestly, and and truthfully, it wasn't me saying I'm going to do it only having a plan A, and because I'm going to make it. How kids say now, if you have a plan B, you plan to fail, all that kind of stuff like that. It was just literally, there was nothing else I knew I could do but act, quite honestly. And so there was no plan B. It was just go for it. And, my uncle Eddie used to always ask me, what is your 5-year plan? And I had none. You know what I mean? You just pursuing whatever you can, doing whatever job was out there. My whole thing when I was in my pursuit was every job I had to be performance-based. So I got fired from a waiting job after a week. And then I started doing telemarketing. And so in the telemarketing, what I would do is I would find the regions, right, on the map, wherever I was calling. Okay. And then you using like that, whatever Midwestern sound you have to have, whatever Southern thing you gotta go with. And then when I really needed to close, I would put the British thing on there. Right?
Oh my God.
That was the closer. You could always work on that, And but it was me just constantly working and honing my skill.
Performing, yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? And so I turned everything into acting. I dressed up like a teddy bear. I dressed up like Santa Claus. The Christmas I did Pilgrim. I was on Fox. And they called me dressed up like a pilgrim. And the brother who was doing the weather in New York, he called me Pilgrim Tyrone. So, but it was performance. Everything was just performance based.
Wow. I feel like just hearing that should be like a show in itself. Some kind of scripted series, showrunner. Y'all here, this might be a series in itself. But looking at your resume, it is absolutely incredible. I'm curious to hear from you. What is that role that kind of changed everything for you?
Well, it's twofold, right? So I think there is the theater role,
okay,
and then there's the film or television role, right? And so for me, I had the good fortune of working with this woman, Nicole Brianna White,
Mrs. Flannery on the show, killing it.
We shared the stage and the screen of doing Youngblood and Rena in Jitney, August Wilson's Jitney. And, that was sort of like a master's in life. But the real moment came in 2007 when I played King Hedley in King Hedley II at Second Stage in New York. Wow. That was sort of me having an opportunity to come back and show that I could hold the stage and be a lead.
And King Hedley is heavy.
Yes, indeed. That's, it's this magnum opus. It's very Greek in scope and stuff like that. And I think that was the moment when not only what I knew for myself, but also the community knew that this young man, this gentleman is a mainstay in the theater community. And I think that when I got to the film aspect of it, I think the turning point for me was indeed 7 Seconds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. Because that was the opportunity. I had a real time to play a character that had so many layers, for the first time. And also it was original. So, some would take fences or what have you, but having done that on stage and having the opportunity to do it on film was something different, but really getting an opportunity to drill down and create a character from scratch and really develop the layers that are necessary to show this man's depth and breadth of his humanity, of his pain, of his traumas, his fears and concerns, everything. That was the turning point for me.
Wow. For me, the first time that I saw you and was like just enamored by your work was Get Rich or Die Trying. And I think it's so crazy. I think you're like one of the only folks that can say that you're a part of the Power universe, but you knew 50 Cent back then. Yes. I'm just so curious for you what that full circle moment was like, getting cast in this show, but more importantly, like seeing him go from that, from Curtis Jackson to becoming this emperor of this universe.
Well, I feel like we're very lucky to have him, and you see it in the time we were doing Get Rich. He was just constantly just present in every moment, when we're working, and he's paying attention to everything. He wants to be a part of everything. And again, this is only a retrospect. At the time, I didn't understand what it all meant. So it feels like a natural progression to go, from doing a film, and him also saying that, having Jim Sheridan and somebody who knew how to tell a story, in a different way, and having this Irishman like sort of them collaborate and tell this story. And it seemed like a natural progression that he would go into original programming and just start opening that universe, and create what we now have in the Power, BMF, and everything else.
Listen, you've been doing BMF, let's go to BMF for the past 4 seasons. Y'all can clap for this. Killing it. And I feel like this character, this episode is evidence that this character keeps getting more and more layered and more interesting. I'm curious what's kept you the most excited and most engaged with Charles Flannery.
The truth of the matter is it's the Randy Huggins in this, give a hand to Randy, the creator.
Come on, yes.
Of BMF. Randy kept his promise.
What was the promise?
The promise said, if you take this job, if you come in and join us, then I will write for you. I took him on his word, and he kept his promise. And not only did he write for me, he wrote for us. And he wrote in a way that had just a depth of feeling, a depth of emotion and passion. And he gave us the room and the latitude to give of ourselves, right, into these characters, into these roles. And so the blueprint was there. And so all we had to do was basically give freely of who we are. And that's rare.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's rare for African Americans, for Black folks, men, women, everything like that, to be able to go in there and really feel.
Yeah.
Right? I often say, there's that quote from The Wiz that the Tin Man says. He says, "What would I do?
Ooh, if I could feel.
If I could suddenly feel, right? If I could reach inside of me and say, I like what I see, then I'd be more and glad to share all that I have inside me here. And if a tear should come to my eyes, think of all the wounds they would mend. And just to think the time I could spend being vulnerable again." That's what we have been able to do. That's the good fortune and the blessing that we have had to be able to be vulnerable on BMF.
Whew. that kind of got me. Wow. And I think, it's not lost on me that you play the father of this show. And it feels like you really lead and you drive when you're on screen. I'm curious, what's been challenging for you? Have there been challenges with playing Charles? Because it feels, when we watch, for both of you, it feels so effortless. It feels like you're really driving and leading.
Well, truthfully, the what you see, the effortlessness is the commitment that Nicole and I have. Working opposite each other and knowing that we support each other. I think that the most challenging part is really just to give of yourself, right? So, now, being a husband, being a father, growing up in Oakland, you now are forced, or I am forced, and I challenge myself to bring every aspect of who I am, every aspect of my manhood, every aspect of my husbandry, my fatherhood. I bring my time growing up in Oakland. I bring aspects of living in a dysfunctional home. I bring aspects of growing up in a trauma-filled environment at times, and that's the challenge. Um, but you have to have a safe space with which to do that, and we have that. And so, even though on the outset it is challenging, because we have that safe space, that safe environment, that home, you know what I mean, without having to click our heels 3 times.
Yeah.
Oof. Having that makes it all that much more easier, and we're able to bring it. It becomes a joy.
Yeah.
The
episode you guys just watched, episode 6, it was powerful. It was tough to watch when I watched it on Friday, and I'm sure seeing it again for many of you was tough. I'm so curious with that scene where your character is having that sort of suicidal ideation and battling mental illness, which is so prevalent and so real. What was going through your mind, and how did you kind of like prepare for that scene?
There was I lost my mother about was it 5 months ago, and my mother used to always say, when she had to pay bills, she would sit on the couch, and first there would be this tornado just going through the house, and turning all the lights out. Why is the refrigerator open, and who left this open, and y'all didn't drink the rest of this, and this is moldy now because y'all motherfuckers didn't eat it. You know what I mean? There would be just this human tornado, right? And then she would sit down on the couch because she was tired. She would sit down on the couch and just exhale, and all she would ever say is, "I am tired." And so in that moment, I reminded myself of how tired my mother used to be. And then I reminded myself of how tired Black people are. And so I've made it my mission to empathize with the people I see every day, right? And so I carry their pain. I carry their fatigue. And what you're seeing is a manifestation of the collective pain and the collective fatigue that is in everyday people who are struggling. You hear their stories, you listen closely and intently, and you take a little bit of yourself, you put a little blood out, but you remember all those times when mama was tired. You remember seeing, the sanitation worker, the way you watch them at the end of a shift at the bottom of the hill, when they would crack open that bottle of Miller High Life and just sit and drink. There's fatigue, there's pain there, because a life is being lived. A life is being lived that oftentimes ends up being unfulfilled. That's what you see up there.
And listen, thank you for sharing that about your mom. I didn't know her, didn't have that honor, but I guarantee you she's somewhere in heaven watching you and giving you a standing ovation.
Thank you.
Just know that. And you guys might not realize it, but you also directed this season. Okay, yes. That is a huge moment. I wanted to share with you. I think I told you all earlier. We tried to do this event last month, but we got shut down because of the protests and the riots. He came. We were going to show you episode 2 where you got to direct. And we had a moment. He came back for this, so that means the world to me that you're back for this, and you came back for this.
Absolutely.
But I want to talk about that milestone moment for you. What did that feel like? What's the biggest lesson you kind of learned from that moment?
Thank you. We're all collaborators. We're all a team, and I don't think I've ever read a script more often and directed than I did being an actor, trust me. But first and foremost, I have to go back and I have to thank Randy because he held up his word, gave his word. I have to thank 50, and I have to thank Heather, our showrunner.
Thank you, Heather.
Who made sure that I got that opportunity not only this season, but last season as well. And you realize it's not easy. I've been trying to get this opportunity for a number of years,
Yeah.
And so when you see that it's not, I don't take it lightly. That's when you sort of realize that there is a network, there is a studio, there are other people around you who are watching, and so you better know your shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You better come prepared and ready to do your level best. And the one thing that I knew is that I knew eyes were watching.
Yeah.
And pardon me, I knew I could not fuck up. Because the reality of it is even though you get an opportunity, you, especially as an actor trying to transition, people are really paying attention.
Yeah.
And but for me, it was just fun. It was a natural progression, because coming from theater, you're dealing with, when you're on stage, you're dealing with spatial awareness constantly, right? So you're talking about sight lines and can the audience see you if you can't see that? So you're dealing with that, and then your mind and your imagination starts going, well, I should stand here, then so-and-so stands here, so-and-so moves there, I'll counter there, we're doing the scene, and now we're dancing. Now there's this ballet happening, this salsa, this groove that we're getting into, right? And so when you're doing that on stage for a number of years, and then you're lucky enough to make that transition into screen, I realized I've done almost 500 episodes of television.
Woo! Y'all can clap for that.
I've had the good fortune and the blessing to do it. And so if you're paying attention at all, you're going to learn something. If you ask a few more questions, you're going to learn a little bit more. And so this was just, me taking those building blocks and taking those opportunities that were laid in front of me and taking advantage of them.
Yeah.
And so, I felt like when it came time to come to BMF and get an opportunity, I was just full as a tick of just like, I want to help tell these stories. And help pour into these young people as well.
And there are so many, and thank you for doing it, by the way, stepping up and doing it. And there are so many folks that are here that are like, they're actors, they're folks that want to have that multi-hyphenate, but I think a lot of it, I don't know if y'all ever deal with imposter syndrome, I do all the time, when opportunities like that happen. I'm so curious for you, did you ever, when the call came to direct an opportunity, did that voice of doubt or imposter syndrome ever, begin to speak? And if so, how did you handle it? How did you silence it? What's the advice you have for that?
I don't, it definitely came. I was nervous as all get out.
You could say what you want to say. We family here. We family.
But that church, what I'm saying. But no, I was really nervous. Again, I have a dear friend of mine, Sheldon Candace, who's a director, is here. I was able to call on him. I was able to call on Tasha Smith, call on other directing friends of mine, and just allow them to pour into me now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And give me their thoughts and their tongues and their encouragement to say that you can do it. You won't know everything, Rely on your team. Rely on the DP. Rely on the script supervisor. If somebody has a suggestion, listen. Now it's a real collaborative art form. It's a collaborative time. Use the team.
Yeah.
And so that's, that was one of the biggest suggestions and words of advice is just use everybody, collaborate, and listen. Don't be afraid to say you don't know.
I love that. And speaking of people that you probably could have called, I think that you got to touch greatness, or you were a part of, witnessing greatness, working with Denzel Washington in Fences, right? He directed you, you starred alongside him. I'm so curious, what's like a hidden gem that you got to observe from him as a director that you kind of learned that maybe even brought with you to this?
When we talk about collaboration, and you realize what he taught me is that you have to be there. The most important thing is to be there for your scene partner. It's to serve the material, but how are you there to help the next person, the person in front of you? We were doing our last scene, when Corey comes back, and I had this huge thing I was going to do, and it was going to be just grand, and I was going to do all these tears and everything like that. And we were doing the scene, and it's just not working. I mean, it's not hitting at all. And he says, "All right, go to lunch." So we go to lunch, and we come back, and he says to me, "What are you doing for him? This isn't about you. It's about him. That's your brother. You love him. You've lived your life. It's about him." So what he really taught me, it's about not serving you. It's about serving your scene partner. It's about how can you help the person opposite you. And then if you're there in service of them, all that other stuff is going to happen because you're tuning in to what they need. Not what you want. What do they need? How can you service them? That was the biggest lesson I got. And from that moment, I believe my acting just took it to another level because I stopped being selfish. And I was there to say, what do you need? We can make it happen.
Whew, I hope y'all wrote that down. That is excellent advice from Denzel Washington, which is crazy. And with this show, I think it's so. I love when I watch and I can go do a deep dive into the real history of Big Meech. He is out of prison now. Mm-hmm. Have you had a chance? I know his son is a part of the show. Have you had a chance to talk to him yet, or are you looking forward to having any kind of conversation with him at some point in the future?
I've spoken with him. I haven't had a chance to speak with him since he's been released. I did have an opportunity to FaceTime with him while he was incarcerated.
Yeah.
It was intimidating. I didn't want to be on the phone too long.
Yeah, right? And I think I heard he watched the show too, right?
Yeah, he watches the show.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just excited to get the thumbs up. He said, "You that daddy from the hate you gave about that girl, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, all right. I was like, "Cool." And that was it. I mean, I know he's cool, but still, I'm not, I'm just a regular dude. I ain't got none of that hustle in me,
That's amazing, though. I would love to, hopefully, fingers crossed, get like a Big Meech cameo at some point, maybe in like a year or two. That's my little wish list. That's my wish list.
Yes.
Listen, we always kind of. What do you say?
No, nothing. We'll wish you luck.
Okay. Listen, we always kind of wrap with this question, and it's a tough one. I hope you're ready. Mm-hmm. And it's really just about like your journey in Hollywood. What is the lesson that's taking you the longest to learn? You take your time.
This place ain't fair.
Ooh.
you know, and I have to give a shout out to my manager, Leonard, we've been
Yes, manager.
together
Very
for
important.
over 20 years. We've been through the 20-something years, 25 years. Yeah, 25 years. And, you know, I mean, listen, I came in on a magic carpet, quite honestly. You know, I came into law. I basically like to tell people, or like to say that I'm probably the last Black actor that came in the old-fashioned way, where you know, we talk about Charles Dutton and Angela Bassett, Delroy Lindo, and many others who were part of the August Wilson canon. And so I think for probably about 15 or so years, there was a period where his plays would happen and they would travel all over the country, and then they would sit down here at the Mark Taper or the Doolittle and do a run. And, you know, a good number of people would get work or, you know, get series and everything like that. And I feel like I was one of the last to get that opportunity. We brought Jitney here in 2000. I got a pilot, Gideon's Crossing.
I remember that.
And they wanted me to quit and whatever. They kept throwing money, but I knew I had to finish the play, and I did. But as I said, I came in on a magic carpet. And so when I got here, I pretty much worked nonstop for a long time. And then I think you get to the point where, I won't say the show, but there was a moment where I got to a job at a certain age and I discovered I was a nigga.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I wasn't a kid no more. You know, I came in relatively young, 23, 24, 25, and you get to a certain age and you get treated differently. And you had to swallow hard, grin and bear it, and realize that not only is the world not fair, but the business ain't fair. And so do the best you can with what you have. What does Al-Esther say? Make better what you have and you'll have best. And, you know, you take the crookeds with the straights. And then what I realized, I was humbled by that. But what I found more gratifying and beautiful was I realized I was the next one in line to get the next opportunity that the brothers and sisters who came before me didn't get.
Wow.
And so I had to realize and put it all in a proper perspective and know that I am blessed. If my career ended today, I had a hell of a run.
You did the thing.
You know what I mean? And so it's not fair, but you're not owed nothing. Because, and I had to say this to myself, because didn't we say, and I knew I said it, I would do this shit for free. So you hit a dry spell, you hit a briar patch every once in a while, and you don't get mad? But you've been able to buy a home, buy a car, have some children, be able to travel the world and have all types of fun, meet all types of beautiful people. And then when the shit gets a little rocky, you gonna get mad and suck your teeth and act like somebody owes you something? That's not right. So it's not fair, but that's life. And so we are all here as fellow artists, entrepreneurs, whatever it is, and understand that the key is the collective. And if we continue to work together and meet each other and everything like that and use these relationships as building blocks to make better what you have best, then in years to come, we won't be able to say it's not fair. We'll just say, what's next?
Come on. Listen, Russell, I want to thank you, but I also want to thank some of the folks that came out. Like Nicole, your work is absolutely incredible in this show. Honestly, chills. Heather, thank you for leading the charge with this show. People are like, yes, of course. Heather, come grab the mic. This is the showrunner. Say something.
So, Jasmine Darnell Brown is here, who wrote this episode. Jasmine,
come on, Jasmine.
And, so he's a phenomenal writer, and he also writes on Beyond the Gate. So watch BMF and that show too, please. Okay. Thank you. And thank you all so much for being here. Our writers' room opened in October 2023. So to be here sharing this with you guys, it's beautiful. So thank you for watching and laughing and crying with us and cheering everyone on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. And thank you to the team at Stars for making this happen. You guys make sure you get on social media, at Stars, at BMF, at Russell Hornsby, Pop Viewers. And thank y'all for being here. Remember, Pop Viewers and Vibes and Views is really about building around BMF, around this show. So make sure you connect. There are some really important people in this room. And Russell, you are a gentleman, you are a scholar, and you are the moment. And I'm just so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you.